Hello, my name is Justin Lee, and I'm a software engineer here with MongoDB. I work on the Java driver team, and I also work on the Morphia project, which we'll discuss today. But before we get into that, I wanted to give a brief introduction into what is an ODM, or Object Document Mapper. If you're coming from the relational world, you've probably used something similar, but in essence, what an ODM is if you have your database here, which is lovely, your application's off over here with your objects, and you can have from a handful to hundreds of these depending on your application. What normally has to happen is if you have your driver, your application code has to know how to take your Java objects, translate them into a form that the driver knows how to handle, and then the driver can then shuttle data back and forth to the database. What an ODM gets you is it sits in between your application code and the driver so that you tell the ODM how to handle your classes, and you just hand off your objects to the ODM, and then the ODM then speaks to the driver. And this has a number of advantages. It helps shield you from some of the driver changes, so as the API and the driver changes, you're a little bit sheltered from those. But more importantly, the low-level details of what it takes to work with the driver can sometimes be overwhelming and complicated depending on what you're doing, and an ODM can really help simplify that, providing a nice Java API on top of which you can write your application, and you don't need to be so terribly concerned with all the inner workings of the Mongo query language, for example. Now, some reasons for not using an ODM, in an interest of fairness, is an ODM is typically a very generic framework. It's designed to work on virtually any code base, and so there are certain inefficiencies that arise out of that, because in the case of Java, it tends to use a lot of reflection to get data in and out of your Java objects. And that can be a performance concern for some, and so some prefer to write directly to the Java driver, and that's perfectly valid. But for a lot of people, an ODM is perfectly suitable and works rather well in their case. So with what an ODM is out of the way, let's take a deeper look at what Morphia itself is and what it offers.